Canada's most notorious biker gang, has a long and sordid history in Vancouver. The Hells Angels have been virtually untouchable at the highest echelon of organized crime in BC. One man took it upon himself to infiltrate the East End chapter of the Hells Angels. Michael Plante reveals how he penetrated the infamous biker gang. As a police agent, he exposed the gang's illegal operations and wore a wire into the East End clubhouse. The evidence he collected and the testimony he provided in court resulted in the convictions of 12 men linked to the biker gang. The result left the East End chapter of the Hells Angels in tatters.
It was June 2010. The story broke out. Residents of British Columbia had their illusions of the bikers shattered. Or rather, the Hells Angels had an illusion shattered. The brotherly bond was faked. In an unpreceded operation led by the police, they had finally infiltrated the Hells Angels. It was dubbed E. Pandora. Michael Plante had caused damage to the life of the Hells Angels. It was about to become hell. It would seem you can't play with fire and hell and not get burned sometimes. The devil holds no prisoners until the end of your life. And it seems sometimes his manifestations on earth would wreak havoc to his own followers. Michael Plante was an undercover agent, and he had successfully infiltrated the Hells Angels in BC. But first, crafty one. It seemed just like heaven. You can have anything you want. Family, friends, old ladies, strippers, hash brownies, beer and liquor, so far as your hands can reach. And that's how the angels like it. They love to kick it at the thicket. A merry band of brothers. And so in 2008, they were watching them party in Langley. Needless to say, the police were not happy when Full Patch Hells Angels Mike Robatzek, 41, decided he had enough of them ruining his fun, and so he approached them like a raging maniac, screaming at them, telling them to get off the property. And it didn't help that this tattooed, juiced up freak came at them wearing almost nothing but shorts. And the police didn't take him seriously, but he was a monster, and he was driving a monster. His entire back, chest were covered in Hells Angels' tattoos. One might ask how the heck he was going to remove those, because by the next 4 years, he would be kicked out of the White Rocks chapter. Mike Robatzek had effed up bad, but at least he was allowed to live. He had served the Hells Angels for 12 years. He was their sergeant at arms and had previously been member of the Vancouver chapter. Oh shitty, bro. Yeah, it's true. I'm out of the club. Just remember that at this time, Larry Amero was seriously wounded in the BC gang wars. Then that would make Robatzek his immediate war supervisor, who would have had a hand in all this. But in order to be kicked out of the club, that would mean that chapter members had unanimously voted that he could no longer be trusted or relied upon. But he was lucky, you see. There was another guy, Jules Stanton, who was expelled from the Angels in 2010. They had given him the golden parachute, the honor of being gunned down outside his house. Never mind that it was near the Vancouver's City Hall. Yes, pillars of the community. Angel baby, our angels. So how does a regular guy set out to become a Hells Angels on his own. Michael Plante decided that the first thing he would do is go buy some t-shirts at Highway Choppers, which was a Burnaby motorcycle shop owned by John Bryce, president of the East End chapter. For those who don't know, COQ shirts, such as support shirts, have slogans indicating the wearer is enthusiastic about Hells Angels. A man riding another man's jock on his shirt saying, "Support East End, support Nomads," specifying that specific chapter. Others will say, "Support Red and White." Mike Plante would use this fact against them by wearing the shirt as he entered the Fitness Quest gym, which was located near 6th and Canby, and he knew from a friend that lots of Hells Angels and their associates worked out there, including John Punko, Ronnie Listing, Jewel Stanton, and a man named Kane Munoz. And soon later, Michael would get a job at Marble Arc, a strip club which two East End Hells Angels were selling cane to. One day, an associate of 81, totally drunk, went on a rampage. He had done the same previously in other strip joints. It was time for Plante to accumulate approval from his masters. I grabbed him and said, "Get the hell out of here," and then I threw him out. And I guess they heard, because things travel. Oh yeah, there's a doorman at the Arc who slapped him on the head and threw him out the back door. And then none other than the club's owners, Louis Robinson and his half-brother Bryce, approached Plante. "Thank you, we're grateful." And what built the myth of Mike the Doorman was when Louis Robinson and Randy Potts walked in the next night. You see, Robinson rarely went to downtown hotspots, probably fearing for his life or maybe the law enforcement attention. But Louis walked in the bar, it seems, to come to congratulate him. And that was the beginning of my infiltration of the East End Hells Angels. From there, Randy and I started working out at Fitness Quest. And when the gym sessions began, his buddy Potts wanted to get bigger, stronger, faster, and he wanted steroids. And that's when they both started blowing up, often sharing roids together with their buddies. But then one day, to his surprise, Plante's buddy Pot did not arise. He was gone. We would not work out at his gym anymore. He'd be working out at the East End Clubhouse on 3598 East Georgia. But not to worry. Yeah, Louis wants to meet you. And that's when he says, so Louis comes to the Marble Arc again on a Friday night now in front of everybody. And he sees me, and this is a big thing, in front of all these people who works in his bar. Him and I go have a meeting and we shake hands. And Louis Robinson asked for Plante's help with his workout regimen. And there it was, the beginning of a friendship between police and the leaders of the Hells Angels. And it would not be hard for Plante to tiptoe his way into their clubhouse. Okay, come in. He says about Louis, he was a clubhouse guy. He was a Hells Angels 100%. They love their clubhouse. They love it. That's their place. Out of 24 hours, Louis was probably there 18 hours a day. And then the unexpected came. The Marble Arc was sold in mid-February 2002, and so they closed it in order to renovate for the new owner, and Plante was out of a job, and suddenly he had a lot more time and excuse to spend with his friends, to lean on them. And the generosity of the Hells Angels for their COQs, the system they had in place, he fell right in. Once Louis invited him at a dinner at the Kobe Steakhouse. Another time it was drinks at Brandy's downtown strip club that would become the scene of brawls between bikers and United Nations gang members. For police, it was a done deal. Within a week or two, he was sitting in their clubhouse. I remember sitting there thinking, wow, effin', you look around and you see all the Hells Angels stuff. So this is real. I'm inside the clubhouse. I'm in the clubhouse. This is kind of wild. Then he was assigned his duties. Every day for 2 years, I had to clean that house. I was like, ugh, I hated it. And once Plante became a prospect, things got more serious. In January 2003, His buddy Potts was beaten up by a Surrey drug dealer and his patch was taken, also his truck and keys to the East End clubhouse. This was huge. Pot got slapped around for it by his biker superiors and then he was asked to go carry out the deed. He was told to take care of him, no ifs and buts about it. They supplied him with the guns. Randy was in charge of the East End arsenal. We had a snub-nosed 38, a 45 with a silencer, and an Uzi with a silencer. Plante was told to go with Potts to stake out the target's house. I never figured he would do it, right? Night after night, they waited. For weeks, nothing happened. And it became more and more apparent to me that he was no killer, right? I'm thinking, okay, perfect. I will go sit in the woods with you at nighttime, Randy, because nothing is going to happen. And then Potts started getting pressure from his bosses. They started putting screws to him. Hey, when are you going to kill this guy? Potts told Plante he realized that he couldn't do it and wanted Plante to go shoot the man instead.
Talking to Michael Plante now, he still reflects back on his role in that investigation and seeing in particular Randy Potts' mom and stepdad actively participating in their son's criminality by storing firearms of the East End Hells Angels at their mobile home, of meth drops being done at their place. And it's disturbing for him even now to see that families are sometimes complicit in what their kids are involved in. And we talked about it because I see it when I'm out covering gangs and organized crime in BC as well, that many families display willful blindness and in fact are somewhat aiding their loved ones' involvement in crimes.
Welcome to Vancouver.
Plante was screwed. He didn't know what to do, so he jammed the Uzi so it wouldn't work. He pulled a balaclava over his face and went over to the dealer. His plan was to scare him with an Uzi and nothing more. I says, listen buddy, get the F out of town. We don't ever want to see you again. And what does he do? He pulls a gun on me. I'm like, are you serious? So I had a snub nose as backup. I have never shot a gun in my life. So I shoot up in the air, I blow up half my eardrum, so he shoots back at me. It whizzes by my head. And then he runs out through this crack house. 8 people start running out of this house. I fire 2 more shots in the air, and I run. But surprise, Potts was a coward. He was supposed to be waiting for Plante, but had taken off in the vehicle. I could have gotten killed. I didn't realize how crazy these people are. If you were at my house sticking an Uzi in my face, I would be like, see you later. Apparently, the next day, it was a laughing stock of Surrey because it was so amateurish. Later, the dealer would be dealt with 9 shots, but no one was ever charged. Personally, I didn't do it, but I had knowledge of it. Even with all his years of hard work, Plante was shocked at watching the meth trade in Surrey bubble up. He got through the worst of it, but he had never seen cooks like this. They were often users themselves. Nicknames like Skinny Curtis, Ponytail Rick, Crazy George. If these junkies wanted fast cash, they would trunk people, literally put them in the trunk of a car until a friend would pay some cash for their release. The Bindi Johal method. It was a violent, dirty world, and one that Plante soon wanted to escape. He made another call to the police general line immediately after the shooting we just spoke about at the crack house. I saw the writing on the wall. It was like, no one has called me back from the police, and I'm literally getting involved in killings now. This is effed up. This is not what I want to be part of. We are literally talking a 1.5 years since I decided to get my butt off my couch to get involved in this thing, and now I am basically a Cosa Nostra kind of guy. This is too much for me. I have anxiety. I started not taking care of myself. My blood pressure was getting through the roof. 20 years ago, on May 2003, he went with the Hells Angels on their annual Kelowna trip. Imagine that. He didn't even know how to ride a motorcycle. Thankfully, his boss Robinson asked Plante to drive his truck back home from Okanagan. The stress was getting to him. I was getting dizzy. I just thought I had anxiety, but it turns out I had a blood clot in my eye, and if it reached my brain, I would die. And the emergency surgery reinforced his decision to go the F away from all this. But leaving would be harder than you can imagine, as Louis was still bossing him around, making him babysit his own son, Lloydsy Jr., who was on bail on set of charges when the police started looking for him for assault. Here he is, telling me I have to go up to Pennington to hide the kid. Back in the lower mainland, he received a call from Potts, his buddy, that they were due to collect some cash from a businessman who owed for a while. When he arrived, we hear screaming, and Bednar comes out all beaten up. We are driving the guy. We're actually tending to the guy's wound, saying, "Are you okay, buddy? Do you want some water?" It was just ridiculous. Then they took Bednar to a downtown hotel where the businessman was to call his friend for some cash. Well, the friend called the police instead. Plante was eating a shrimp and sandwich from his room service when suddenly the police broke the door and came to arrest him for extortion.
This was all part of my plan. I swear, I was infiltrating them for you.